we're all in a different place. You might even say we're in a different state. And thanks to Yaakov, we have the opportunity to share this each with the other as we socialize. But perhaps you, like me, have had several realizations arise from the process of this change. And one of those realizations for me has been to do with the transplant in the eye and the recognition that the scientists have proven that one can take a single cell from a being and recreate another being. So I had to acknowledge that I have a whole being in my eye. So if you sense a change in me, well, perhaps it's him or her. But that led me to recall a little Zen story about a discussion between two Zen masters, and one Zen master said to the other master, "You know, it's said that Kuan Yin has 1,000 eyes. Tell me, master, which eye is the true eye?" The other master said, "When you're asleep at night and your pillow falls on the floor and you pick it up and continue sleeping, what eye was it that was seeing?" The other master said, "Oh, I've got it. The eye is the entire body." No, said the other master, "you've got it wrong." "Well, how should it be?" said the other. And the master said, "The whole body is the eye." And just to give a little interpretation of that from this perspective, if for instance we're sad, would we say, "I am sad, but my big toe's not sad"? And there's a story about a king who was looking for a court astrologer. So he heard about this quite famous Brahmin astrologer, so he decided he would give him a test to see whether he was worthy to be employed. So the king took 3 of those little stones that are called cat's eyes, and in his palm he put it before the astrologer, and he said, "What have I got in my hand?" Well, the astrologer was really quite perturbed about this, because he realized that if he got it wrong, that he would miss the chance of having a lucrative position in the king's court, and besides that his whole ethos would be ruined. But in that moment, down at the end of the corridor, in the shadows, a cat turned around the corner, and its shining eyes came to the attention of the astrologer, and almost muttering without thinking, he said, "Cat's eyes." And the king said, "Yes, you've got it. Now tell me how many there are." And the Brahmin astrologer, still being in that state, waited for a moment, and in the distance he heard the bell tolling 3 times. So again he said, 3. And the king said yes, and of course he got his employment. But after that, the king did not want the astrologer out of his sight. He wanted him there on call at every moment. So the astrologer had to follow the king around with whatever he did and wherever he went. But as time passed, the king was sharpening his swords on an occasion, and suddenly he cut off the tip of his pointer finger. He bled rather profusely, and of course he looked to the astrologer for a little bit of sympathy. But you know, after the initial encounter with the king, the astrologer coined a phrase that became his catchphrase, and that was, "It's all for the good." So when the king cut off the tip of his finger, the immediate response from the astrologer was, "Well, it's all for the good." The king got very angry. He said, "I don't want those cliches. Get out of my sight. I can't stand the sight of you anymore. I don't want to see you anymore." So the astrologer left the king's presence. But after that, the king decided to go on a hunt, as he loved to do. So he went off with an entourage, and he was in the forest following a deer, when, of course, being on his great stallion, he soon outpaced all the members of his entourage and found himself deep in the forest. And as it happened, in that forest there were a bunch of what we might even call rebels, but in fact they were followers of the great goddess Kali, and you know she's a wild piece of work. So they were looking for a human sacrifice to offer to Kali so that they could go on with their nefarious affairs. And of course it was wonderful for them, because they would be looking for in their wildest dreams a king or a Brahmin to offer up. And here comes the king himself. So they capture him, and they're about to offer him to the goddess Kali, when the band leader said to them, now inspect him, because you know we can only offer a perfect being to Mother Kali. So of course when they inspected him, they found that he was missing part of his index finger, which of course rendered him not perfect and not good enough to be offered to Mother Kali, so they let him free. Now, when he got back to his palace, he immediately called for the astrologer to apologize to him, and he asked the astrologer, "Well, why do you coin this phrase, 'it's all to the good'?" And the astrologer answered, "Well, you see, Your Highness, you take me everywhere you go, but because you got angry and sent me away, it was only you who went into the forest, and because of your defect was not good enough to offer to the god. But if I had been with you, I'm a Brahmin who has no physical defects, so they would have taken me to offer him up, to offer up to the gods. So all is for the good." So if we put this little series together, and we look to where we've arrived at now, and maybe even seek to understand, well, what is my new way of relating to life? And we can come back to an awareness that may arise from this little sequence of anecdotes and stories. What has it to do? What is the meaning of that saying by the Zen master? The entire body is the I. What is your experience now? What is your relationship with life now? What is it that's taken place for us? What is the meaning of the whole body is the I? What is it that arises for you right now? Knowing that, like the astrologer, our sensory awareness coupled with what? There it is. What is it that arises for you? Who are you now? What is this I that's entire, whole, complete?